and start. So welcome everyone. What an exciting day and how good to see you all online to join us in the global launch of the Wize Moves at the workplace. For those who do not know me, my name is Ingo Bol and I'm the CEO of Move into the Future and the creator of the Wize Moves Society, our international online community for the over 50, or as we love to call them, the Wize generation. Today, we will expand our activities with a great program that gives us the opportunity to support organizations to create a multi-generational workplace where people of all ages and all backgrounds feel welcome, valued, fulfilled, and challenged. So today I'm here with part of our fantastic team of experts from all over the world, and they will share how we intend to support these organizations to make change happen. But before we dive into that topic, I would like to share a story that relates to this topic. When I was in my late 20s, and that is about 35 years ago, I was a sales rep for a huge computer service company. Since I did spend a lot of time on the road, I love to connect with my colleagues whenever I was at the office. So at product development, I always visited John. And John was really a great guy, great spirit, positive, very wise. And every time that I visited him, he could tell me exactly how much time was left until he would retire. 1 year, 3 months, 4 days, 2 hours. And during those months after those moments, he moved several times. The office became smaller, further down the hallway, and he started complaining more. I joked sometimes that one day I would find him in the broom closet. This is a real story. It's sad. And I often think, what if? What if they had scheduled a moment with John 2 years before his retirement? Asked him how he wanted to spend the last 2 years. Give him the opportunity to share his knowledge, experience, and wisdom with the younger generations. What if? Imagine what this could have done for John, but also for the organization. But they didn't. John made it until the last moment, the last day that he had to go to work. But believe me, he was not that happy, positive guy I used to know. Imagine John and think about John when we talk about multi-generational workspaces. So let's start, and I'm going to share my presentation with you, and I see that Francis is online. Patty joined, so welcome everyone. Elizabeth joined. It's really good to see you all. I'm going to share my screen. So the Wize Moves at the workplace, and what we are going to do is, share a bit about how we think that we can support those organizations to create that multi-generational workspace that feels welcoming, valued, fulfilling, and challenged for people of all life stages and backgrounds. So actually 3 groups, 3 parts. Why we need to talk about this Wize Moves at the workplace, so why this multi-generational workspace, how we can support a growing 50+ generation at Wize Move at Society, and how can Wize Move at the workplace contribute to that multi-generational workspace. Yeah, so we have our teachers, our trainers, our thought leaders, our advisors, they're all coming on board. Well, not all, luckily, because then it would be way too much, but some of them will. So just a little bit the facts. The world is facing a rapidly growing older population. People are living longer, are healthier, more active, and better educated than ever. And the knowledge, experience, and wisdom of the over 50 or wise generation is of great value for organizations, the economy, and society as a whole. The wise generation leaving the workforce too soon cannot be replaced by the much smaller group of the younger generation just entering the workspace. So this can result in a knowledge drain and a skills crisis. That would not be good. So we're going to start the first part with Dr. Tatjana Rosen, Mary Jane Roy, and Annalie Kilian. And I'm going to stop my sharing because I really would like you to see them when we hear them talk. So also you can, of course, use your speaker view or your gallery view, whatever you want. But we start with Tatjana. Tatjana is an academic, psychologist, and social gerontologist, researching life, work, and career transitions in midlife and beyond. And some of you might recognize her as my co-host in many of our Tuesday afternoon live conversations. So my question, Tatjana, from your perspective as an academic, a researcher, what is happening in the world at large, and more specific, at the workplace with this growing older population? What is happening?
Thank you, Ingrid. Well, there's a lot happening, and there's a lot that could happen that is not quite happening yet. I think we are facing a very big demographic shift that's been coming for a long time, but it's like those things we want to avoid and we leave for next year. Next year, we don't seem to be embracing or facing that. We're reaching a point now that's becoming evident that retaining people at work is an important part of keeping the economy going. So we need workers of all ages, and we need to be able to retain people at work for longer. So in terms of the business case, the economic case for that, it's evident in many countries. We see shortage of staff in healthcare, in services, and transport, and different areas that we can really see is becoming acute. While at the same time, we're losing staff because they're aging, because the workload might be too much, because they just want to do other things with their life. But they could stay if there were different arrangements available to them. So that's one part of it. The flip side of that is we have this aging population, which is a triumph. It's something that is good news. It means that as societies, we're doing something good. People are living longer, people are living healthier. And we have a long way to go before we retire, and our pensions and the pension pots out there are not sustainable. It's not enough money to keep us afloat financially for 30 years or 40 years after ending our working life. So not only there's an economic case for keeping people in, keep people at work, but there's as well the personal side of it as well. If we don't keep people at work, if people don't carry on being productive, earning, and being able to sustain themselves, then we have a big problem there. So my question as an academic, because that's what we do, we ask questions and then we try to pick the next good question to ask again, is what is the missing link? What's happening that this problem or this issue is becoming more acute rather than we bridging the gap and bringing the solutions to surface?
Mm-hmm. I like that, because, well, yes, we do need to find that missing link, and we do need to bridge that gap, because otherwise we leave the next generation with a huge challenge. Let's phrase it like that. Next question for you is, why is it so important specifically for organizations to focus on this group from their perspective?
Well, I think that organizations are missing out a treat here of keeping this group engaged and productive. Is a group of people that at this stage of the career accumulated a lot of knowledge, a lot of insights into how the work works, and losing that knowledge is something that is not to the advantage of the organization. So definitely the organization should be looking to retaining talent rather than losing talent, and especially losing talent out of the workforce altogether. which is disastrous. Not only that, I think organizations should be thinking about not at the stage where people are hitting the retirement, but even thinking earlier on in the working life, because research is there to show that what happens in retirement is a culmination of things that happened earlier on in life. So it's a cumulative effect of our health, well-being, skilling, how much we retrain, and so on, that later on it might become problematic. So when organizations look at the workforce, they should think at the person in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, what can I do today to keep that person healthy and with up-to-date skills, interested and engaged, because I'm looking ahead in 5 and 10 years' time, and I want to still have that good worker on board contributing to the organization.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much, Tatjana, for your input. And yes, we are facing a lot of challenges if we don't use those talents and retain all these people for the organizations and for the economy. Thank you, Tatjana. We're moving to Annalie Kilian. And Annalie is a very global woman. Lived, well, as far as I know, South Africa, Australia, USA, now in France, and very soon the south of France. It's a really great place to, not bad to live there. And she actually is the first at the beginning of this year, when I shared what my plans were, who immediately said she wanted to be involved because she felt it was very much needed to act. And Annalie, I would like you to share a little bit more about you, about your background, and especially also the time that you have been diving into that, you know, that older generation and retirement issues and finances, etc. Annalie, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Inge, thanks for this invitation. My interest in this particular dilemma of an aging population was really kindled while I was working in a large financial services corporation in Australia, where the bulk of our business came from wealth management for people, where, you know, to a large extent, that was providing for retirement solutions, as well as managing the pension funds that companies collected from people as they worked. So those were our corporate clients, and then we had retail clients who would also take out private retirement policies or insurance policies, everything to manage financial risk. But of course, like many other countries, in Australia at that time, the official retirement age was 65, and there was a growing insight that people aren't finished when they turn 65. Many are only hitting their peak at 65. And so we are sort of like faced with the reality of radical longevity, where people are living very healthy for far longer than this age that was defined by Bismarck in many hundreds of years ago, and became a sort of an international standard for retirement age. But it's completely misaligned with current reality in terms of health improvements, better nutrition, better education, people doing lots of different kinds of work that their bodies aren't finished when they're 65. So they're very active and able to live for much longer. Now, the problem is that most organizations tend to also just plan for a career until somebody is 65, and it's a societal paradigm that oh, you will retire when you're 65. But the reality is, what we found in financial services is most people cannot afford to then pay for a 35-year holiday when they think that they might live until they're 100. So between 65 and 100, that's like 35 years with no income that you're going to have to stay alive. You're going to have to pay for a roof over your head. You're going to have to eat, and you're going to still consume. So, and much of that in a very healthy way, with a lot to contribute to society by way of skills, by way of experience, etc. So this creates for governments a problem if people haven't got enough savings and they run out of life savings or retirement savings because they're living much longer than they had ever planned to or saved enough for. And that becomes like a social dilemma. And at the same time, we are now seeing that we have a problem with attracting and retaining the right talent in the workforce, and particularly if you want to kind of grow, there is a talent war on, and it's been exacerbated by COVID. So what is the answer here is, how do we think much more creatively about how we employ and retain and make the best use of people across their lifespan? And that lifespan really has to extend way beyond 65. And also, what is the value of, in fact, having this workforce that is multi-generational? What does that bring to the work experience? What does it bring to camaraderie? What does it bring to teamwork? It's something that is very undervalued in many organizations, that where there is a lack of people across all the life ages, you get a skew in terms of your workforce that doesn't necessarily mirror your customer base. It doesn't necessarily mirror a normal distribution in society. And these are some of the challenges that I think organizations are not factoring in to how they design the optimal workforce.
Yes, thank you, Annelie. It's the first time that we were speaking, and it is so aligned with what we're thinking, and we know that this is happening. In a way, we know that this is happening, but we don't feel that things are being done, and that is, what we feel is we have to act and we have to do. So, thank you very much. I'll come back to you later in the program. I would like to move to Mary Jane, and Mary Jane is a very active member of our team, thought leader, as well as Annelie and Tatjana. She's a corporate advisor, a facilitator, presenter, and writer, building employee resiliency skills to create staying power. I love that. Question, Mary Jane. The last year, you really became more and more involved in what is happening with this 50+ Wize generation at the workplace. You wrote articles, gave a speech at a huge D&I Congress. Can you share your thoughts about what is happening with this Y generation at the work floor? What are they experiencing?
Yeah, what are they experiencing? I think the first thing that comes into my mind is the fact that nobody's asking them what they're experiencing. I think this is maybe one of the biggest gaps that we're facing. Is that there's a lot of assumptions that are being made about this group, but nobody is actually asking individually, what are their expectations, what are their needs, how do they see their career growth, etc. So that is, I think, one of the biggest handicaps right now in the workplace. And And we all, and even we ourselves, because most, if not all of us, about almost all of us, I think, are 50 and older. We experience ageism, but we also do it to ourselves. So there is this need also, I find, that we have to start being accountable for how we're thinking about others of our age group, but also about ourselves. And that's one thing. There's a great TED talk by Ashley Applewhite. If you look her up, and one of just the small things, she mentions in that is about experiencing, how often haven't I said, oh, just a senior moment, when we're forgetful about something. She said, when I was 18, I never thought if I forgot a book at home that I didn't take to school with me that day, I never said, oh, I'm having a junior moment. We tend to equate these idioms and accept them as if they're true, as if they're facts. So I think the ageism is really and the stereotyping that takes place in the workplace. We don't have the energy. We're less motivated because we think, we're going to retire in 5 years. So there's no motivation there. We're not flexible in our learning. And Eugene, I don't know if you're going to mention it, but I will hear, we all know now that learning is possible to the day we die. So as long as we continue to grow and develop our brains, they will continue to grow and develop for us, excluding, of course, any kind of disease that process that's taking place. But in a normal, healthy brain, we continue to develop. You can teach old dogs new tricks. Right? It's become a mantra for me. So you've got these roadblocks that are put in front of us, but we also sometimes put them there ourselves. And I think the other aspect then is we need to also not just be asked, but we also need to ask for what we want. And if it's not happening, and if it's not being offered to us, then reach for it. What kind of upskilling, reskilling do I need in order to still be relevant 5 years from now? Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that gives you it's not a complete answer, of course, but it gives some indication of what's going on and what the roadblocks are, Ingrid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I love it what you say, we're not being asked, but we don't ask ourselves. There's this huge communication gap that we need to bridge, because this isn't working. And yes, the aging, the thinking about what we can or cannot do, we need to be judged. Well, the older generation, the 50+ generation, judged by what we can do and not by what we cannot do. And that is something that also needs to be challenged in the years to come. So thank you for now, ladies. You will be coming back at the end of the session. I would like to go back to the presentation, the PowerPoint. And what we see here is a very interesting quote, a very interesting statement. Is 83% of corporate executives report that the multi-generational workforce is of value to their organization's success and growth. But, so 83% knows that this is of value for their organization's success and growth. Only 5% of employers have put concrete and effective policies in place to retain the wise generation in the workforce or continue to support their living, learning, and earning. That is from a report of the OECD in 2020, so last year. This is amazing, if you are aware that we need to do something, they are aware they need to do something, but only 5% act. And there can be a lot of reasons why this happens. Another quote is, globally, one in 3 workers feel that their employer is not doing anything to facilitate a multi-generational workplace. 1 in 3. And this figure rises significantly in Japan, 54%, France, 52%, or Germany, 50%. And I happen to see that Mike Manfield is online, and we didn't talk about this before, but I see you're online, Mike. And this statement comes from the Aegon Retirement Readiness Survey 2020. And at that time, you were the program director of the Aegon Center of Longevity and Retirement. So maybe you just want to add a few words on what this means for employees, but also for employers. And I'm going to stop my share so that we can see Mike, and hopefully he will dive into this question.
Thank you. And I thought that sounded familiar when I saw it on your screen.
Sorry, I didn't tell you before, but I thought, let's see if
no, but it's lovely to see. It's lovely to see the research being used.
Yes,
I think we've been doing research in 15 countries around the world on exactly this topic. And I think it's exactly what both Tanya and Lee and Mary Jane said a few minutes ago in terms of the shift. I mean, the system we have now is unsustainable. 40 years and expect to pay for a retirement of 20 years. Just people's ideas are shifting. Only a third of people that we did said that they expect that traditional cliff edge retirement where they stop working from one day to the next. And the majority of people wanted some form of transition to retirement where they slowed down before they stopped. Or continued working in retirement, but that there was definitely a mismatch in terms of what the employees told us that their employers were offering. I think it was only a quarter of the employees told us that their employer offered them the opportunity to move from full-time to part-time work when they were getting older. So there's definitely a change going on, but a mismatch in terms of the speed of the change and a recognition. We really need to have a recognition that as both employers and employees, that we need to have the discussions that Mary Jane mentioned, that where there's a disconnect, just people aren't talking about it because we're missing a huge opportunity here.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. So what is happening? So our first response is because, you know, at Moving to the Future, we were, of course, been discussing about all these things. And our first response was, we need to support the Wize generation. We need to support those 50 plus employees to get ready for the future. So the online community for the 50 plus generation was launched on May 1st of this year, the Wize Moves Society. And it is a community, you know, to connect, to have fun, to make new friends, to work on our health, very important, to innovate, to create, and find solutions for new challenges that we're facing. So very active, very future and solution oriented. So, you know, where we see a lot of talking and where we see a lot of research being done, we really felt like we need to act, we need to do, and that is what was happening. And I'm going again, share my screen and go to the next picture. This is what I wanted to show you, just to give you an idea of what is happening at that Wize Moves Society. So this is the environment where we welcome our members, the members of that 50 plus or Wize generation, where there's a lot going on. You know, we have on Friday our World Cafe sessions where we dive into certain topics. We now have our happy hours, but we also have a lot of training and teaching and coaching and mentoring going on. And that's if you look at this whole circle, and I know it's very small, maybe we do that on purpose, but anyhow, it's these are all training and programs that are going on, very much focused on on healthy aging, and that can be physical, mental, or emotional well-being. It can be focused on, it is focused on making new friends, having fun, but also, you know, to build that new network, to build that new support system, which is very important. Focus on work, of course, you know, time to reinvent yourself. What is your next step? How can you reinvent and focus on what do you want to do in the future? What is your purpose and what is your drive, and where, what are your values, so that you also know what you really want to do in the future. But also, what do you need? You know, what is you upskilling, reskilling? Do you want to retire soon, or do you want to really do it in phases? Is it a semi-retirement? But also, what is for us is important, you know, to really work on those entrepreneurial skills and leadership skills, but also be able to create and innovate. So in the end, well, in the end, that is very important. We just heard it. To create that financial stability, by now we know that this age group does have an issue to live another 30, 35 years of our retirement plan. And I don't know about you, but for me, that is not sufficient, absolutely not. And on the other side, you know, I am almost 62. I don't intend to retire for the next so many years. So there is this thing about wanting to stay active, not knowing exactly what to do, but also really the need to stay active. Now, for now, with the corporate program, the organization program, Wize Moves at the Workplace, this is actually something that we can use also, these programs, in the organization. And that is what we are going to do with small changes. But everything is ready. And what I would like to do now is to introduce you to some of our teachers, trainers, coaches, mentors on that program. And I don't know if everyone is here, but we're just going to start. And I know Deborah is needs to, yes. No, you don't need to. You don't need to. Oh, good, you can stay here. That's even better. But anyhow, we'll start with you. And I am again going to stop share because I really want to see all these fantastic faces. So Deborah, you're from Canada, Vancouver Island, Victoria. Deborah is a certified wellness and breathing or breath coach and a therapeutic yoga and meditation teacher. Deborah is bringing a program on the Wize Moves Society that is called We've Got a Whole Lot of Living to Do. And that, I think, says it all. You know, we've got a whole lot of living to do after that retirement. But also, you know, if you are 50, 51, 52, you can live for another 40, 50, maybe even 50 years. So we really need to be fit and ready to do that. So Deborah, can you explain a little bit about, you know, that we've got a whole lot of living to do, and also why that healthy aging is so important?
Oh, that was such a full question. But you know, Inge, when you first showed one of the slides, there was a shot of an older man and a young person and a middle-aged person. So it was a nice combination. And the word that hit me was community. And I just sort of felt, oh my gosh, you know, when you look at something like that, and you can have an organization that really has heart and really, really cares about not only the bottom line, but cares about each individual and each individual helping other individuals, then it's a family. And if it's a caring family, then they're going to want to support each other, whether they're older, whether they're younger, whether they've got issues, health issues, or whatever. It's because they've been invited to have an experience like that and be a part of something where their voice matters. So for me, I look at this whole issue and I say, and Tatiana was just saying, you know, this is something that it's a new paradigm. I mean, we've been kind of going in this direction for a long time, but we've been smacked in the face with COVID. And now it's like, you got to take those sunglasses off because reality is setting in. You can't put them back on, otherwise you're not going to survive. So it requires people at the top and at the bottom. The top are leaders who have vision. They can see that there is this shift, and I feel ready to lead something like this. I may not know how to do it, but I feel that there is more, and community is really important, and longevity of everyone is important. And you also have the employees who are lost and they need a guidance, and they have to be taught, how do you have your inner guidance? We all have our own inner guidance, but it's like, we don't know how to tap into that. And for leaders, I'm just going to put it into one little box, but there's a lot of little boxes. If somebody is afraid that they're going to lose their position or look stupid, or no one's going to support them, then it's hard to be a leader. And so there needs to be ways for people to be able to feel safe in how they express and be able to, we're turning into a heart-centered world. And why do I say that? I mean, I just intuitively know that I ask the question, why are people leaving their jobs? They're leaving their jobs because they don't feel respected. They don't get paid. It's just like you go in and you feel, I would assume they're leaving the job because there's issues. This is all being shaken up, and new paradigms need visionaries. They need people. That's why this particular group is spot on. We need visionaries who are not afraid and who know in their soul, who know in their heart that where we need to go, and we're really ready to pick up the chalice and take us there. Well, so how do you do that? Because as soon as you start thinking about that, it's like it's very an expansive thought, but it's like, then you go, oh, me? Can I do that? And then your body comes in and it speaks to you and it goes, it's like, I don't know what to do. So this is where the body, mind, spirit. And so I come from the aspect, it's really, we have to be total. We have to be whole. We have to be in our body. We have to be in our mind. We have to be in our expression. We have to be in, and there's a balance. And how do we do that? We do that through an inner connection and the outer connection. Simple things like learning how to breathe in a way that allows you to connect with your deeper sense. Move so that as you get older and you move your arm and it goes, or you don't have those so much, so you glide instead of crack. And so it's really important, whether you're young or whether you're older, that you've got mechanisms that people celebrate that you can go to. Like I used to teach transcendental meditation for quite a few years, and there was TM in the workplace. There still is TM in the army, TM in places. Mindfulness is now becoming so popular, and this is a wake up. Eugene, you must have some wonderful stories, but it's like how can organizations say, okay, at the beginning of the day, we're all going to meditate together. Now, some people say, no, I don't, that's religious, or that's what. It doesn't need to be religious. It's about the self. And it could be as simple as just breathing so that you can find that place of center. And they found that when people, schools that do that, the kids get along better. Their sports are better. Their grades are better. They communicate better. They feel better. Now, why wouldn't you want to do something that would create something like that in your workplace, because then everybody's going to give more. They're going to give more because they're happy, they feel loved, they feel respected. There's places to go when they don't. It's like this, we're talking about creating a whole new community within your community. And it kind of makes sense that if we have these tools, these wise tools, some of them very, very ancient, that can enliven the greatness in every single one of us, so we don't feel alone. We don't feel like we've got to get out at 65. Because if someone feels, Ingan, the thing about 65, I mean, there's been studies on, let's say you think, well, I'm going to die at 80. It's like you work up to 80 and then you die at 80 because you said you're going to die at 80. So, or you're going to get a red Ferrari. So you work up and you get a red Ferrari. So, the mind is pretty profound. So I'm kind of blathering here, but I guess I'm passionate.
You're passionate, yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I love it when you start talking. You're absolutely right. We need to connect more with who we are, but also stay active and healthy and to be able to do the work and to live longer, but also to do that whole lot of living after any work. And I'm reading that book now, Extra Time by Camilla Cavendish. There also it says, you need to be active, you need to stay active, and as long as possible, so that in the end is coming soon. But we're not talking about the end. But yes, we need to stay healthy and active too.
So on that note, if you're in a corporation and you have you have programs that allow you, as you're young, to grow older gracefully, and as you're older, to grow younger, and take care of yourself. So, and I've taught yoga in organizations and stuff like that. So
yeah, fantastic.
Very important.
Thank you very much. I always love your energy. You know that, and I always tend to ask for your age and I'm not going to do it this time because I really don't want to talk about how old people are. We need to talk about what we bring to the table. So I'm not going to ask you. But I do respect for what you're doing. And, if you compare you and what you're doing right now with someone who's 50 and is in doubt or, feels confused about the next phase in his life, then I think, well, Deborah has already done a whole lot of living after that age of 50. So really great. Okay, I'm moving to Bernadette. Thank you very much, Deborah. That was really interesting. Bernadette Dijkhuizen-Koch, originally from the UK, living in the Netherlands, and also working in that space of healthy aging, mindfulness training, nutritional therapist, corporate training facilitator. So Bernadette, since we do become older, we obviously need to work longer. We need to be fit and ready to do so. How important is lifestyle in the equation? And how can we focus on our lifestyle without turning everything upside down starting today?
Yes, thank you, Ingan. So yeah, lifestyle is incredibly important in terms of healthy aging. It takes a long time for chronic illnesses, for example, to build up. I think Tatiana's already mentioned that in her intro, in terms of, it takes many years for disease to develop. So starting as early as possible to ensure healthy aging is very important. So when we're looking at lifestyle, we have nutrition, we have movement, we have sleep, we have stress management, I think I said movement, physical activity. So all these elements are very important to put in place to allow us to age healthily. So really the programs that we look at are really kind of starting early. So helping people in their 20s all the way up to their 70s, hopefully, or 80s within organizations, to be able to make conscious choices to support their health and aging. So supporting health through all life stages, essentially, and and it's very, very important that we put time into this to avoid chronic illnesses and non-communicable communicable diseases in later life. They take many, many years to build up. And why is it so important? So that we can perform at our best for as long as possible. This is the essence of what we're trying to do with these programs.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I years ago I knew someone who mentioned, it's your genes that loaded the gun. It's your lifestyle that pulls the trigger. And, there are so many lifestyle related diseases, and we by now are became very great at keeping people alive, but we don't want to just be alive. We really want to add life to our years. We really want to stay active. And, hearing this also the facts about our retirement fund and things like that, it's not only we want to be active, we need to be active.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you've already done programs like this in
Yes, I mean, this is what I spend my days doing in organizations, teaching around, well, many different elements, but around nutrition, stress management, those types of things. And it always has a lifestyle element as well. So, we do sleep clinics, helping people to identify what's getting in the way of a good night's sleep. We look at, well, just this week, I've done one around mental health and nutrition, and how important it is to be feeding our brains. So there's just energy. We do things around energy as well. So how can we eat to optimize our energy? How does food impact our stress levels? So how can so all this, it's so interrelated, but it's really empowering people to take action, because I think, like you said, so that we don't have to change everything. And in particular, when I'm looking at nutrition, I don't look at what we start to take out. It's what can we slowly start to include. So where are people starting from? And as a coach, because I do individual coaching as well, where are we starting from? So if you're talking to somebody who's not eating any vegetables in a day, bringing one portion of vegetables is the action step. And we always close off our sessions with personal action plans. So what's resonated most with you? What's one action you can bring into your day? Because, we know with habit change, and habit change is actually a big factor in what we're doing as well. Just getting 1% better each day. It's this accumulation of new habits that are going to support our health. And we have things like the keystone habits, you never really know exactly what it's going to be for each individual person. But once you start doing one new healthy activity for yourself, you find that others start to fall into place. So maybe you start running once a week, and then it's easier for you to make healthier food choices. So it's really kind of interactive, small incremental changes, which in the long run are going to have a massive benefit on our health, our well-being, our energy levels, our mental capacities.
And the way we function in that workplace.
Yes, exactly.
Directly. Okay, thank you very much, Bernadette. And I love also your passion. That is what I really love about this whole group of experts that we have here. It's their passion, and it's really what's also their expertise and knowledge, the wisdom that they already bring to the table. So thank you very much, Bernadette. We are missing some of the teachers, so that is also why I give you more time. But I am moving now to Eugene Smith, and I want to introduce you by the tagline of your company: business transformation and change with a brain-friendly twist. We want a short version. Eugene, I know I always have to warn you in advance, but you can talk 3 weeks about this topic. But we love to hear your experience. Please
Great.
explain.
This unfortunately is true, and so I'll try and keep it short. Okay. So a lot of the work that I do is obviously informed by neuroscience, and everything that Deborah and Bernadette and Tatiana and everybody else has said kind of leads up to some of the scientific backing which exists in terms of the offerings which we have. And the key thing for me is, what are we doing to help older people prevent getting into cognitive decline? And what are those processes, and how do we work within organizations to help them understand that cognitive decline potentially starts in your younger years unless you understand some of the things that you need to do. So there's two aspects of it. And if I look at some cognitive decline sort of aspects, what requires a healthy mind? And the key thing for me around the aging brain is that you have to maintain it nice and flexible. We know that neuroplasticity defines the way that our brains are set up, and that it can grow from birth to death. As long as we don't allow it to step into cognitive decline, that's also growth, but it's growth in the wrong direction. So just by understanding some of the key processes, and Bernadette and Deborah both touched on some of the stuff, but there are 7 key areas from a cognitive health perspective that we need people to understand and drive, particularly when we are in the later years. And those things include sleep time, and Deborah has spoken about that. Bernadette spoke about it. And if we don't understand the damage that we do by not getting the right quantity and the right quality sleep, and the rapid decline that that can cause in terms of dementia, Alzheimer's, if we're predisposed to it, etc., it's absolutely critical that we explore what our own sleep habits and sleep time looks like. We've got to have playtime. And the older we get, the less likely we are to get involved in playtime. And playtime is critical. Playtime releases dopamine. It gets the creative and memory functions flowing. So what are some of the playtime activities that we drive, and how do we explain that and encourage people to participate in it? Then there's time out. Now, most of us have stopped daydreaming, and daydreaming is a fantastic time out process. And when I talk about daydreaming, I say it's not reflecting or ruminating on the issues of the day or the problems that I have. It's living in that future space. It's intentionally having zero intention at all. So time out is critical. Time in is as critical. And what are your reflective practices and your mindful practices? If you're not living into mindfulness and reflectiveness, you cannot grow your thinking. So reflection is absolutely critical in terms of keeping your brain young and fresh. And reflection, I say particularly to the younger generation, is with a pen and paper. It's journaling and reflecting on serious questions around, where am I? What's impacting me? How am I impacting those around me? What future do I want to create? What is my purpose going forward? How will I create my new why? And reflecting and developing those sort of processes. So time in for me is critical. And then, of course, physical time, exercising. It goes without saying. Our brain uses approximately 20% of our body's energy. That means 20% of your blood flow, 20% of your oxygen, your nutrition, your hydration, etc., goes to your brain. Our conscious and deliberate thinking tool, which we need to do reflection and need to redesign our lives, need to get ourselves reactivated. That part of the brain uses 80% of the energy that goes to the brain. So if you're not activating your heart and lungs, you're not pumping enough oxygen to your brain, you're not pumping enough healthy, powerful blood to your brain, and you are deactivating your thinking. So we need to get active. And if you look at the neuroscience research around it, it says we need to be active for at least 30 minutes a day for at least 6 days a week. Now, and Deborah spoke about the notion of getting up and moving. So what are we doing about that? If we don't remain active as we grow older, then that'll have a devastating impact on our brains and our thinking and on our ability to sustain ourselves for the next 30 years. So we need healthy minds, but we need healthy bodies to support the healthy minds. Then, of course, there's the other two, which is connecting time, which goes without saying. If we don't connect with others, social pain and physical pain sits in the same part of the brain, and the brain experiences it with the same intensity. So being locked out from connection actually causes more pain over time, which has a devastating effect in terms of our growth and our ability to grow. So connecting is important with other human beings. And then, of course, focus time. You cannot have focus time without having created a healthy mind and a healthy body. Focus time requires that when we do work, that we focus particularly on it, we take away other distractions, and we actually get into that space. So the other three areas that I also want to lightly touch on is the notion of learning. If we have stopped learning, our brain starts aging. Learning has to be something we do for the rest of our lives. And when I say learning, it's taking new information, making it my own, either teaching it to somebody else or doing something with it. I get a lot of people that I speak to that says, I keep my brain young by doing crossword puzzles or Sudoku or things like that. And I go, that's great. While you're learning how to do that, it's a good activity. But as soon as you've mastered it, it's just become a map which you automatically apply. And the aging process continues. So continuous learning. I want to challenge anybody over the age of 50 to learn a new language, because that activates a whole bunch of the networks and so forth in our brains, and it actually changes the way we think by learning a new language. So those are things that are important. And then, of course, we've spoken about nutrition. What you put in is what you get out. I'm doing a lot of work in one organization at the moment around change management, and I see the people that at lunchtime have high GI foods like potatoes, and they fall asleep in the afternoons. So if you're going to do work that you want to do quality thinking, please don't eat high GI foods or high glucose, high refined sugar foods prior to doing thinking, because it will shut you down and it will make your brain go sleepy. So those are things that we need to focus on. And then, of course, hydration. Are we drinking enough water to keep our brains active? If we're not drinking enough water, our brains are shrinking, and when it shrinks, our thinking shuts down. So this is for me a healthy mind platter, if you like, of what we need to do to ensure that we remain young, vibrant, and have the ability to think long into our golden years, so that we can actually regenerate ourselves, redesign how we drive that future and how we drive income over these many years that lie ahead of us. So Ingun, I hope I've not taken up too much time. I haven't spoken a lot about the process of how to rewire, but I do spend a lot of time explaining to people the process that is required in terms of rewiring behaviors. So you can't change a habit. You can't redo a habit. You can only build new habits. And as you build new habits, it starts slowly over time disintegrating the old habit. What happens in corporate cultures, as an example, is we build neuronal pathways over many years that make us show up in a certain way. We call it culture in business. And it's the way which we show up when we're not intending to show up differently. And that, if we carry that into our next generation of life, it will determine the outputs and the behaviors that we drive there. So we need to sit down and ask ourselves, what are the new behaviors that we need to shape? How long do we need to focus on it? How regularly will we focus on it? What are the actions that we set? And for me, actions are, and I hear people talk about SMART goals, and I go, they're great, they're specific, they're measurable, they're attainable, they're realistic, and they're time-bound, and mostly useless. Because if there's no intentionality or inspiration behind your goals, they're not intentional and deliberate actions. So that's some of the work that we need to do, is to teach people how to set intentional and deliberate actions and how to regenerate and reignite their passion to drive their future. So thanks. I hope I've not overstayed my welcome again.
Thank you. Well, you know, it is so interesting. So it's really great, and you have no idea how happy I am with your smart statements. You know, that was, I use, you know, anyhow, I'm not going to share that right now. No, thank you. It was really great, and I think everyone can realize why we are so happy with this team of experienced teachers, trainers, people who really have seen everything in their field and have learned so much, are really wise and knowledgeable. So it's fantastic. Just before we turn to the last item and really move into, okay, so what can we do for that workplace? And you have already heard several things, because what we're doing on the Wize Moves Society, we can use also in organizations. So that is really fantastic. I saw that Francis is online. Francis, are you here? Yes, Francis is here. Very short, because we are running out of time. We still have 30 minutes, but please short. Francis is one of our longtime members, one of the first members. Actually, she was forced to become a member, but that is maybe good that she shares that herself. But you're a very active member, and you've experienced quite some things already on the platform. And I really would like to hear what you have experienced and what happened to you in the last couple of months.
Well, the thing that sticks out for me lately is how I bought into this ageism. I had a recruitment agency for 25 years. And through those years, I've seen so many laws against discrimination, sexual orientation, single mothers, disabled people, gender, I mean, you name it. The one thing that nobody considers important is age. And one of the things that discrimination is about, it doesn't say you've got to hire the person. It says you've got to decide, you've got to evaluate that person's ability, their talent, without looking at these issues. Now, when we talk about age, I think the mistake we all make, and I make it myself, we put everybody in one box. But just like all women can't fit in one box, just like all black people or white people or whatever fit in one box, I don't think age, people over 60, should be put in one box. Because some, yes, they don't want to work, they may be not well enough to work, etc. So you can't have a statement that says everybody over 65. Someone did say about choice, and I think that's the thing. You have a choice and you have a way to evaluate your productivity, because after all, that's what a company wants. But without a law in place, companies will abuse you, because someone said they wanted to pay them 25%. Are they expecting 25% value in exchange? Or are they expecting 200% value but pay 25%? I've worked with companies and I know that they try to get people as cheaply as possible. So if there are no laws to protect people, they will abuse them. So one of the things I think is important to do is to think about passing laws of not discriminating against people against age. You must look at people, their CVs, their abilities, their experience, their productivity levels, their desire to work how many hours, and pay them accordingly, because that's how you get respect. If people in the company know that you're getting 25% of their salary, they're not going to take a word you say seriously, even if you give them gold. And it's important, if we want to be credible in the workplace, it's important to start with adding ageism in the discrimination basket. I mean, I can't believe it. You can be black, you can be bisexual, you can be disabled, you can be whatever, and you're allowed to work. But the minute you're 65 and you're healthy and you're intelligent and you're normal, you're not allowed to work.
Yeah,
I don't understand that.
Yeah, Francis, you put yourself a little bit in that box of
Yes.
age and was too old and not valued.
Because I heard that every day of my life. for
Yeah.
25 years.
Yeah, yeah. But you have regained your strength.
Well, not exactly. Not 100%. I'm still, it's not easy to fight the world on your own.
Mhm.
Some days you're stronger than other days. But this is why I found this organization so particularly valuable. You know, I didn't sort of realize the importance of words with like-minded people, the people who believe the same as you. I mean, I've seen the change happen slowly. It wasn't one day I believed this and the next day I believed that. It was a little bit and a little bit, a little bit. Every time I come to these meetings and I hear people talking, I start realizing, hang on a second, this is BS. And this is why I had that BS meter that I read you the other day, that I wrote my own BS meter. So I think we must all think about fighting for legislation to change. That's the first step. All the other things are wonderful, and I think lots of people know that. And yes, of course, we must take care of ourselves. But without the right laws in place, we're fighting a losing battle.
Okay. Thank you very much, Francis, for your contribution. Really great. We are still stepping to the next part because otherwise we really have a time issue. So we have seen these examples of what we're doing on the Wize Moves Society, but what we realize more and more is that we also needed to work in organizations. And since we already had all these things in place, we really wanted to support organizations to create that workplace where soon people of 5 generations will have to work together, where they feel welcome, valued, fulfilled, and challenged. So we are an organization, again, that is very much into what are we going to do and how are we going to act. So what can we do? And we need to do it now. So I would like to go to Renee. Renee van den Burg lives in the Netherlands. Renee is over 30 years experience as an HR leader in corporate environments. She now is a leadership and career consultant, board member, trusted counselor, and global mentor. My question for Renee is, we mentioned in the beginning that 83% of the corporate executives are aware that multi-generational workplaces are of value for their organization's success and growth, but only 5% acts. Renee, looking at your experience as an HR leader, where do you think organizations can put concrete and effective policies in place to change into that multi-generational workspace?
Thank you, Ingrid. Thank you for the opportunity. So I think from the experience in corporate, and I guess many people here do have that experience, is there's always a full agenda of focus points, balanced scorecard. So there's always many topics that are on these high-level agendas, management agendas. So the thing that made us most successful in changing whatever change we wanted to do in my experience is when you tag it into an existing policy, an existing initiative, an existing strategic initiative. So the best thing we can do is in companies where we have a D&I approach, a D&I policy and D&I strategy, we tag along with that policy, that's D&I policy, because we've heard before of a couple of speakers that age bias, age discriminations can be part of a full D&I policy and strategy. So that would be my best suggestion for corporations, for companies, for organizations. You know, that may sound a little bit big, or wow, we don't have such a strategy, such a policy, maybe in mid-sized companies. Then we can also go for, you know, let's look at a couple of procedures and processes. So just look at, you know, where a company, where an organization has issues. So if they have a recruitment issue, an employee shortage issue, let's start with recruitment. If there's, you know, there are enough people and there's a skills issue. Let's tag on skills issue to tackle the topic. And, you know, there are so many things that we can think about in terms of like job design, job content. What can we offer our, let's say, the wise aged people? How can they contribute their expertise? How do they want to work? As Mary Jane says, do we listen to all generations in our workforce? I remember a time that we stopped career discussions at around age 40, 45 maybe. Yeah. So why do we do that, you know? So there are simple processes, ways of working we can include. We can talk about awareness for recruiters, for managers. We have been working with like HR planning. Most companies have some sort of HR planning. What can we do in HR planning? I have beautiful examples of, yesterday someone called it a different name, but we called it returnships. So older people who have retired come back for, you know, typically when there's a crisis situation or a project, we would bring in, you know, people that had been working for us and could come back. Specifically when there are crisis situations, when there is a lot of need for, you know, overview, wisdom, no ego anymore, it is beautiful to bring in such a person with such experience. So, you know, returnship, comp and ben, you can do so much in comp and ben, from pay for, you know, level, not for tenure, which is a big issue in some of the European companies, not so much in the US, by the way. Employability, skilling, training, health management, we've heard many examples. So there are also, it ranges from really the strategic approach to really practical HR processes and procedures that we can make work. And we have quite a lot of knowledge in-house in Wize Moves Society to guide. That's my 2 cents, Ingun. You're on mute.
Yes, yes, sorry. What you also mentioned is, you know, where are the issues? You know, one of the things that we are developing is this quick scan, so that you in organizations can really fast define what is the issue and how can we tackle it. And it doesn't have to be huge, you know, that it has to be a change, but it can be, you know, step by step. And I love it what you said, that you can incorporate it in the D&I policies that are already there, because there's of course already a lot going on in these organizations. And one more question for you, Renee. You're also a global mentor, and you believe that intergenerational mentoring can contribute to a more welcoming workspace.
Yes, well, it was trying like 10, 12 years ago when we introduced it in my company, a high-tech company, corporation. And we said, okay, why don't we introduce you sort of up and down mentoring? Peer mentoring was already accepted. More experienced to younger people was already experienced. And then we introduced this sort of reverse mentoring. And it was wonderful because the younger generation felt really, wow, you know, can I add something to this experienced workforce, these experienced leaders in the company. And the more experienced generation, they sort of, wow, they were made aware, they were made conscious about, you know, what the younger generation, how they think differently, you know, they have different interests, think differently. So it was a great exchange, interdependency and growth journey. And so that's why I definitely also do this in my current practice. And I mean, it is alive and it is working, and it's beautiful learning experience for both parties.
Absolutely, yeah. I really believe that is adding to the success of organizations. And yesterday evening, I was in a webinar, and they were talking about what was it? Intergenerational co-leadership. to leverage wisdom and experience of different generations. So then really in leadership positions, they have a more senior and a younger really partnering to make that role happen. So that also sounds really great. Thank you, Renee, for your sharing your wisdom. I'm going to Annalie. We've already met her, of course. Annalie, you're a big supporter of senior apprentice programs. Can you please explain a little bit what this is and how you think it can contribute to the workplace that is more age-friendly?
Thank you, Ingrid. It's an example of something that Renee touched on. She mentioned returnships is an example that she was citing there. Well, at my firm in New York, we have been on this journey for some years. I work for a cultural consultancy that is part of the Omnicom group, and about 4 years ago, our CEO, who is an absolute champion of diversity and inclusion, reflected that not only is the advertising industry one of the worst offenders when it comes to age diversity, but he also realized that it is just foolishness that in the marketing industry that it is so skewed towards the youth. It's a fundamental flaw actually in how you work and operate. So in I think 2018 we had our first intake of senior interns. These were people that were recruited, and the requirement was you had to have 30 years of experience. So it basically meant that we were aiming at attracting people, in their late 50s and in most cases in their early 60s, who were looking for really that opportunity to learn something new, which was important for them. Some of them have been discarded on the scrap heap of their corporations because they had failed to continue to invest in their careers, and then they were sort of like the first to be bumped off. And those people applied. We had over 1,000 applications for just 2 intern roles. The internships were 3 months, and it gave these candidates the opportunity to join an organization that does skew very young, but learn absolutely bleeding edge new technologies and new approaches to marketing, which is what we do. We are one of the leading firms that use and combine man and machine to drive trend insights and cultural insights. We have one of the world's leading AI platforms, which we call the Q Intelligence platform. And these candidates all learn to work with Q, they learn to work with our methodology, and most of all, they learn to work with our pace. Our pace is exceptionally fast, and it was something that I myself encountered as somewhat startling when I joined the organization at the age of 54. It was an adjustment, but within 3 months I had adjusted to the pace, and I just had to reset my own way of working instead of perfecting everything. I had to learn to be scrappy and say everything doesn't have to be perfect, because speed and landing the plane is much more important than perfection. So it required adjustment on my side. And so it's also around reading the values of the organization that you're in and what matters here, and then adjusting and adapting. And we are capable of adapting. And so our senior interns have shown that as well. We repeated that internship again in 2020 during COVID. And this time we were sort of a little bit concerned if it would work, because people had to do it remotely, and it was a roaring success. And those candidates have gone on to talk about it as life-changing for them, opening up doors to new opportunities that wouldn't have been possible without that internship at Sparks and Honey. Now, my call to corporations here is that the more corporations that adopt this kind of principle to formalize reskilling and retraining through internships, which is short term, it's 3 months, etc., the more we're going to be able to have generation of workers at all ages that are relevant, have up-to-date skills, and can in fact take roles now that the world has transitioned to accepting hybrid work. The world has transitioned to accepting shared jobs. The world has transitioned to working part-time and many permutations on what used to be a one-size-fits-all kind of a work relationship. So never has there been a better time to be creative with your staff mix. The other thing that we have seen as a benefit from these senior internships is literally the reverse mentoring that goes on between both the young and the more senior people. And certainly the things that the more senior people have managed to bring into the workplace is things like coaching, things like mentoring, and particularly resilience. I was very curious when Eugene was talking about, you know, how to apply neuroscience at an individual level to keep yourself fit cognitively. But I'm also interested in the neuroscience of multi-generational teams, because I think you will find when you do the research that there is greater stability in those teams, and there is resilience where young people sometimes struggle with anxiety and stress because of just the world that we're living in. Older people have been around the block and they've sort of seen that, you know, we've been there before, this too will pass. You know, people have just experienced hardships and they're there to be able to encourage and nurture younger people. And it's not always just about job skills. These are life skills, and that makes for resilient teams. And when you have resilient teams and a stable workforce, that's really, really good for business. And people enjoy working at a place where they have a multitude of relationships. So I wanted to focus a little bit more on what is the value of a multi-generational workforce.
Wow, it's a very, very interesting initiative, and I really believe that that is going to work. We can add so much more value. There's so many ideas, and I really, you know, just listening now, you know, I know you all, I know what you're all doing, but really taking the time to dive deeper into what we can do, what we are going to do is, we need an hour per person at least to really dive into these topics. Thank you very much, Annalie, very great initiatives. I would like to go to Mary Jane. And I'm still watching the time. So don't you think it is time that we can change the perception of what people bring into the workplace, like knowledge, experience, wisdom, skills, talents, personality, instead of always talking about that age?
Yes.
Let's stop talking about age.
No, but it is time to change the perception. All right. Yes. But also I think what I've heard from Renee, what I've heard from Annalie in this last bit, this is how it's going to happen. the more contact that there's within the multi-generational workforce that we have with each other, then people are going to start to appreciate more. And I read, I think it might have been Camille, the book that you're reading. It's not that one, but one of her books. But where the irony is, you know, we age from the day we're born, but we don't seem to embrace it.
Mhm.
And I think this is where, I mean, people that turn 30, it's now you're over the hill, you know, the birthday cards that people get from the time they're 30 is all indicative of the stereotyping that we're doing. So we need to be more vocal about it. I think all of us need to be. We also need to censor our own, what I mentioned earlier, censor our own language. And if you hear someone talking about their senior moments, create a different perspective for that individual. So yeah, but I think I'm really impressed with the ideas from Renee and Annalie on how we can make this happen within the workplace.
Mhm.
And again, starting with what happened to me last week or 2 weeks ago with the photo shoot that has now had about 15,000 views on LinkedIn.
Yes, fantastic.
But the whole basis of that was the photographer wants to change, and the personal brander, the views that we have about aging and the elderly, that old is also beautiful, you know? So yeah, in one word, yes, we need
Yes,
to change.
we need to change.
We will.
And we'll figure out more ways how to do this. Yes, absolutely. I really love, and I really want to thank you for all the work you have done together with us to really create also the brochure on what we are presenting as the Wize Moves
Welcome.
workplace. Last but not least, Tatiana. My dear, where are you? Your brain must take you places right now. You're always that creative mind of thinking about, okay, so what are we going to do and how? So I really would like to pick your brain right now. So let's just dive into what is happening there, you know.
Oh, it's fun.
Everything you have heard and what is going on. And of course we have the need, but you know, it's now the action.
No, definitely now is the action. And I agree with Mary Jane, listening to what Annalie was saying, and Renee. It's just so interesting, the different ways we can promote a multi-generational, multi-age workforce. And I think it's about time that we move away from polarizing people at work. And I think we are polarized enough as societies, as nations around the globe. And I think we've diminished that gap by togetherness, by engagement, by learning from each other and learning together. Then we will have a much more interesting and productive workforce. And then the issue of age and division will become less important, because we won't see people in these terms anymore. So I think that there's a lot of actions that we can take. I'm buzzing.
Yes, so
and I'd love to see the numbers and the research, but I'd love to see the action as well. And I can see there's some very good first steps that out there that we can just bring to the awareness of everyone that's being with us today.
Fantastic. Will be a lot of work the next coming the next coming months. So that will that is fantastic. You know, I love that. You know, I'm also that creative and innovative mind and always thinking about the next step. So that's really fantastic. But the time is there, you know, and we said it was going to be an hour and a half, and it is an hour and a half. Just short. What can we offer? We're very, well, you've seen it. We're very pragmatic, ready to go, a team of international experts. We have our Wize Moves Society ready, where people can onboard immediately and start their transformation journey. As a midlife review, we can do a quick scan in organizations to see where the need is, where the issues are, where we can start and make those small changes, as Renee mentioned, to in the end really see change happen in organizations. They're ready to use programs that we can use also in organizations. And we have this team of experienced scientists, consultants, trainers, coaches, and mentors. And really, they are experts from all over the world, and people with the intention to support organizations to create that multi-generational workforce, and that offers that welcoming, valued, fulfilling, and challenging environment for people of all ages. So this is the whole team. So not everyone has been here, but so it's much more, there's so much more going on in the organization. But anyhow, you know, we would love to talk. And what is going to happen next step, we are going to send you tomorrow, everyone who is registered for this workshop, for this global launch, everyone will receive tomorrow an email with the link to this global launch, so that you can rewatch it and see everything that has been happening, and a link so that you can download the brochure that has been made, so that you can also have a shorter overview of what is happening at the Wize Moves at the workplace. So love to see you all, and love to see you even more. So if you intend to become a member, that of course can already happen from tomorrow on, this evening on. Visit the website www.moveintothefuture.com, and we hope to really see you soon. So thanks for being here. Have a wonderful day, and love to see you soon. Bye bye.
Thank you for organizing this, Ingun. Marvelous.
You're welcome, Deborah. Thank you for joining us.
And Tatiana.
Nice.